Dear friends of SIMI, welcome to a new appointment with the SIMI Talk. Today is with us Professor Gauthier, PhD in sociology from Louisiana State University, and she has been working as Senior Research Associate at the Center for Applied Research in the Apostolate at Georgetown University until 2019. Welcome, Professor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So, Professor, she specialized in the Catholic demographic trends in the United States, and she also edited the CARA report, quarterly research publication, and other CARA publications. And she co-authored a series of 12 books. And today we are going to talk about the last book she co-authored, Migration for Mission, International Catholic Sisters in the United States, published by Oxford University Press. So it's well known that the United States is described as a nation of immigrants, and the Catholic Church in this country is often referred to as having built by immigrants. So this is not just an historical phenomenon, but it's something that still characterizes the United States. In this context, the study focused on over 4,000 international sisters from more than 80 countries. And it shed light on the challenges of migration itself. So the book allows us to see international sisters as immigrants embedded in the context of global migration. Why it is so important to focus on their journey, and who are the sisters?
Yes, I think for us, it's important to focus on the journey of these international sisters to the United States because it breaks so many of the stereotypes that we have about immigrants. We think of immigrants as poor, as fleeing oppression elsewhere, as having to struggle mightily to gain a place in the United States. And these sisters, certainly some of them went through many, many struggles. Some of them are very, very poor, but many of them came to the United States, were sent by their congregation for education here, or for ministry, or for leadership, for various things. They have so many different pathways of getting here, and so many different things that they do, so many gifts that they bring to the U.S. that we're just we were shocked by in the book. It was just a fascinating story to investigate all the different ways these women got to the United States, what they did when they came here, what they continue to do, what a gift they are to the church. So these women, these international sisters, according to our definition that we used for the book, an international sister is just a sister who was born outside of the United States. So she could have been a young woman that came as a child with immigrant parents and discovered a vocation after she was here. She could have grown up in Africa, say, and entered religious life there, and then was sent here to the United States for her education. There's many, many different ways that they got here, many different paths. As an aggregate, on whole, these sisters are average about 58 years old, which is significantly younger than the US born sisters, whose average age is much closer to 80. So they're younger. 90% of them are engaged actively in ministry. They're much less likely to be retired, obviously. So they're very active in a variety of ministries. About a third of them come from an Asian country. Another third come from Latin America, from Africa, from Europe, even from Oceania. So 6 continents we found among these 4,000 sisters that we located in the US.
So this is really it shed lights on a big variety of stories and backgrounds and migration
Mhm.
backgrounds from really 6 continents. It's really a big work. Is there any story that you want to particularly put the focus on?
Well, personally, because I worked at CARA with a Vietnamese sister who's one of the co-authors, by the way, of the study. Um, there were some very, very interesting stories from the Asian sisters, um, a lot having to do with cultural issues. One sister in particular talked about how she was she was picking up her bowl to eat her soup, as they do in Vietnam. It's totally natural. And an elderly sister sitting next to her slapped her hand and said, "That's not how you do. That's not how we eat here. You use your spoon and you eat properly." And she was hurt. You know, it was an innocent mistake, and certainly the elderly sister may have had a little dementia or something and was correcting a child, she thought. But, you know, it was concerning enough that she brought it up in one of the focus groups and mentioned about how difficult it was to integrate into culture despite the best of intentions. Um, I just remember that as a fun story.
Yeah, it is a funny story, but it's also a story that it actually gives us a meaning and an understanding of what it means to integrate in a different place. And it also happens inside religious congregations. And
Yeah,
the book also provides an analysis of the increasing international dimensions of religious life today, and which is going in parallel with the multicultural dimension of the newest generation of sisters in the United States.
mhm.
So, what challenges do they face today, and how has their mission changed over time from the last century, and what is the contribution they give today to religious life in the United States, as well as, of course, the church and society in general?
Sure. Well, of course, this immigrant sisters is not a new phenomenon, as we've already discussed. The church was settled by immigrants, and we've had international sisters from the very beginning: Irish sisters, Italian sisters, German sisters, Polish sisters, mostly sisters from Europe, of course, in the 19th and 20th century. Uh, but these sisters, only about a quarter of these sisters that we discovered in the research for the book are from European countries now. Most of them are from Asia, from Africa, from Latin America, from other places. And so they face the typical challenges that any immigrant would face. They have to adjust to the language, and language is a big issue for them, even those that spoke English fluently before they came. In fact, most of them are pretty fluent in English, but they still get sidewise glances and comments about their language and about how they need to improve their language. They have to learn the customs, of course, how to drive on the right side of the road, and all of the crazy things that set Americans apart. They have to learn to deal with the individualist culture here, and many of them struggle with that. They're used to a much more communitarian, communal culture. And so even within religious life, which is based on community, they still have to struggle with the some of the customs, American customs about individualism. They have legal issues, of course. Coming here to study or to visit for a brief time is not an issue, not really a problem. But coming here as a religious worker, there's a specific visa for that, and It has very strict time regulations on it. And so they struggle with visa requirements and the legal issues, just like everyone else does. And one of the big things that they mention, because remember, they're younger and most of them are very, very active in ministry, they struggle with balancing work and rest, work and life. That's a big issue for anyone who's engaged in a ministry as all encompassing as the things that these amazing women do. And then they struggle a little bit with loneliness, with isolation, with feeling separated from their congregation back home or their family back home, as any immigrant would. So those are some of the challenges that they face.
So these challenges, in a way, can make them understand better what migrants are experiences in the United
Absolutely.
States. So what about their ministry with migrants, the pastoral care of human mobility in this sense?
Yeah, there was a beautiful quote that I wanted to share with you. About this is from one sister in one of the focus groups. She's talking about her community, and because it's an international community. She says, I love the beauty, the richness that the community brings. It's very special. I love, for instance, this past vocational meeting that we had in Rome. The Peruvian sisters are very different from the American sisters. They're passionate for the poor. In this country, we're not thinking of the poor. How much they enrich the community, particularly. They enrich all of us. So having these experiences of another culture within American culture helps enrich the American sisters and helps them become more aware of the global situation. And I think more sensitive to migration and to migrants and to the need to minister to the migrants.
This is really a perfect example of how they can feel and how it can be, and the enrichment among each other, just by sharing different culture, which is something that is very difficult indeed, and that is something that divide the majority of the people from migrants. That's because not knowing the culture, not knowing the differences, but at the same time not understanding what can actually bridge that two differences. It's something that everyone we are working on. But in the book, it's interesting because some sisters refer to themselves as bridge builders across the ethnic and sometimes the ecclesial divisions, that divide individuals, group in the church and beyond in the society. Can you explain better this concept and provide some example?
Sure. I think many of them see themselves as a bridge to another culture, a way to have a more real exchange of cultures, much like we've been talking about. There's so many examples to pull from the conversations. Just one of them that I think is very powerful. This is from an African sister. She says, so we are signs. I think it is a reward of the labor of the early missionaries to Africa, because even as in the Bible, one sows, the other reaps, the other one waters, and things like that. The white man brought Christianity to our country, she's talking about Africa, and we sowed the seed and we grew the fruit, and now it's our time to give back. I think God is using Africans as a reward and also as a sign of hope that there's still a future for religious life. And I thought that was so very powerful, very, very strong message about how they're now working as a bridge to bring new life to religious vocations in the United States.
According to your experience as a researcher, what would you suggest to our audience, which is indeed made of people that it's expert in migration, but also people that is getting it's new to the topic of migration. I mean, it's getting to know the topic of migration, because one of our goal, one of our mission is, of course, to raise awareness on migration. So what would you suggest to people that want to get involved more in the world of migrants and migration?
I think the best way to learn more is to strike up conversation. Find these sisters. They're out there. They were right under our nose and we didn't realize it. But we were so enriched by the conversations that we had doing the research for this book. It was an absolute delight, and research is not always an absolute delight. Sometimes it's a real chore. But this one was just delightful. Getting to know these women for who they are, for where they came from, what their experiences have been, the joys and the sorrows, the challenges and the highlights, and learning why they are in mission, what brought them to the US, why they're here, what they hope to accomplish. And they were, all of them, eager to talk, eager to share. As soon as they recognized that we were open to listen to them, they were excited to have a chance to talk about themselves, and we learned so much from them. That's what I would recommend to anyone, is just get to know these people. They're wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Gauthier, for sharing your experience, your professional experience, your study and your research that's just being published in the work Migration for Mission, International Catholic Sisters in the United States. We were very happy to have you with us, and hopefully we will join you again in more conversation on sisters and migration. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.